I am Almira Joy M. Pineda, taking Bachelor of Secondary Education, majoring in English, and I am here to tell you a story entitled Dead Stars. But before that, let's talk about its author. Paz Marquez Benitez was born in Lucena, Tayabas. She finished high school at Tayabas High and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree from the UP. In 1912, she joined the UP faculty handling classes in literature and creative writing. Dead Stars was written in 1920. It is a love story that, says Leopoldo E. Yabes, has a quiet beauty which cannot be denied by even the most discriminating leader. Dead Stars is a sensitive story of disillusionment, of the play between what might be the ideal and what is. It is natural for one to dream, to build a belief in something or someone because of an intrinsic longing for loveliness, for the unattainable. Through the open window, the air-steeped outdoors pass into his room, quietly enveloping him, stealing into his very thought. Esperanza Julia, the sorry mess he had made of life. The years to come even now beginning to weigh down, to crush Delos' concreteness, diffused into formless melancholy. The tranquil murmur of conversation issued from the brick-tiled azotea, where Don Julian and Carmen were pottering among the rose pots. Papa, and when will the long table be set?
I don't know yet. Alfredo's not very specific, but I understand Esperanza wants it to be next month.
Why is he not bit more decided, I wonder? He is over 30, is he not? And still a bachelor. Esperanza must be tired of waiting.
She does not seem to be in much of a hurry either.
How can a woman be in a hurry when the man does not hurry her? Papa, do you remember how much in love he was?
In love? With whom?
With Esperanza, of course. He has not had any other lover at all. What I mean is, at the beginning he was enthusiastic. Flowers, serenades, notes, and things like that. Alfredo remembered that period with a wonder not unmixed with shame. That was less than 4 years ago. Was he being cheated by life? Love, he seemed to have missed it. Or was the love that others told about a mere fabrication of fervid imagination, an exaggeration of the commonplace, a glorification of insipid monotonies such as made up his love life? Was love a combination of circumstances or sheer native capacity of soul? In those days, love was, for him, still the eternal puzzle. For love as he knew it, it was a stranger. To love as he divined it might be. What do you think happened?
I suppose long engaged people are like that. Warm now, cool tomorrow. I think they are oftener cool than warm. The very fact that an engagement has been allowed to prolong itself argues a certain placidity of temperament or of affection on the part of either both.
Carmen laughed aloud at the thought of her brother's perfect physical repose, almost indolence disturbed in the role suggested by her father's figurative language. Few certainly would credit Alfredo Salazar with hot blood. Even his friends had amusedly diagnosed his blood as cool and thin, citing incontrovertible evidence. Tall and slender, he moved with an indolent ease that verged on grace. Under straight, recalcitrant hair, a thin face with a satisfying breadth of forehead, slow, dreamer's eyes, and astonishing freshness of lips. Indeed, Alfredo Salazar's appearance betokened little of exuberant masculinity, rather a poet with wayward humor, a fastidious artist with a keen, clear brain. One evening he had gone neighboring with Don Julian, a rare enough occurrence since he made it a point to avoid all appearance of currying favor with the judge. This particular evening, however, he had allowed himself to be persuaded.
A little mental relaxation now and then is beneficial,
The old man had said. A young woman had met them at the door. In the characteristic Filipino way, formal introductions had been omitted, the judge limiting himself to the casual "Ayasen Konsen," with the consequence that Alfredo called her Miss Del Val throughout the evening. He was puzzled that she should smile with evident delight every time he addressed her toast. Later, Don Julian informed him that she was not the judge's sister, as he had supposed, but his sister-in-law, and that her name was Julia Salas, a very dignified, rather austere name, he thought. Still, the young lady should have corrected him. As it was, he was greatly embarrassed and felt he should explain. To his apology, she replied, "That is nothing. Each time I was about to correct you, but I remembered a similar experience I had once before." "Oh," he drawled out, vastly relieved. "A man named Manalang, I kept calling him Manalo. After the 10th time or so, the young man rose from his seat and said suddenly, 'Pardon me, but my name is Manalang. Manalang.' You know, I never forgave him." He laughed with her. "The best thing to do under the circumstances, I have found out, is to pretend not to hear and to let the other person find out his mistake without help." Don Julian and his uncommunicative friend, the judge, were absorbed in a game of chess. The young man had tired of playing appreciative spectator and desultory conversationalist, so he and Julia Salas had gone off to chat on the vine-covered porch. On Sunday morning after Mass, father and son would go crunching up the gravel road to the house on the hill. The wife of the judge invariably offered them beer, which Don Julian enjoyed and Alfredo did not. After a half hour or so, the chessboard would be brought out, then Alfredo and Julia Salas would go out to the porch to chat. He enjoyed talking with her, and it was evident that she liked his company. Yet what feeling there was between them was so undisturbed that it seemed a matter of course. Only when Esperanza chanced to ask him indirectly about those visits did some uneasiness creep into his thoughts of the girl next door. He answered that he went home to work, and because he was not habitually truthful, he added, "Sometimes I go with Papa to Judge Del Val's." That half-lie told him what he had not admitted openly to himself, that he was giving Julia Salas something which he was not free to give. He realized that, yet something that would not be denied beckoned imperiously, and he followed on. "Up there, I find something." He and Julia Salas stood looking out into the quiet night. Sensing unwanted intensity, she laughed, womanlike, asking, "Amusement?" "No, youth, it is spirit." "Are you so old? And heart's desire? Down there!" He had continued, his voice was somewhat distinct. "The road is too broad, too trodden by feet, too barren of mystery." Down there, beyond the ancient tamarinds, lay the road upturned to the stars. In the darkness the fireflies glimmered, while an errant breeze strayed in from somewhere, bringing elusive, faraway sounds as of voices in a dream. "Mystery? That is so brief." "Not in some, not in you." "You have known me a few weeks, so the mystery." "I could study you all my life and still find it." "So long?"
I should like to.
Those 6 weeks were now so swift, seeming in memory, yet they had been so deep in the living, so charged with compelling power and sweetness. Because neither the past nor the future had relevance or meaning, he lived only the present day by day, lived it intensely with such a willful shutting out of the fact that outstanded him in his calmer moments. Just before the Holy Week, Don Julian invited the judge and his family to spend Sunday afternoon at Tanda, where he had a coconut plantation and a house on the beach. Carmen also came with her 4 energetic children. She and Doña Adela spent most of the time indoors directing the preparation of the merienda. After the merienda, Don Julian sauntered off with the judge to show him what a thriving young coconut looked like. Plenty of leaves, close set, rich green, while the children convoyed by Julia Salas found unending entertainment in the rippling sand left by the ebbing tide. They went far down, walking at the edge of the water, indistinctly outlined against the gray of an out-curving beach. Alfredo left his perch on the bamboo ladder of the house and followed.
I hope you are enjoying this, he said with a questioning inflection.
Very much. It looks like home to me, except that we do not have such a lovely beach. There was a breeze from the water. It blew the hair away from her forehead and whipped the tucked skirt around her straight, slender figure. In the picture was something of eager freedom, as of wings poised in flight.
The afternoon has seemed very short, hasn't it? This, I think, is the last time we can visit.
The last. Why?
Oh, you will be too busy, perhaps. Do I seem especially industrious to you?
If you are, you never look it.
How do I look?
Not perspiring or breathless, as busy man ought be.
But
Always unhurried, too unhurried, and calm.
I wish that were true. A man is happier if he is, as you say, calm and placid.
Like a carabao in a mad pool?
Who? I?
Oh no!
That is what I think.
I used to think so too. Shows how little we know ourselves. It was strange to him that he should be wooing us with tone and look and covert phrase.
I should like to see your hometown.
There is nothing to see. Little crook streets, nipa roofs with ferns growing on them, and sometimes squashes. That was the background. It made her seem less detached, less unrelated, yes, withal, more distant, as if the background claimed and excluded him.
Nothing? There is you.
Oh, me! But I am here.
I will not go, of course, until you are there.
Will you come? You will find it dull. There isn't even one more American there.
Well, Americans are rather essential to my entertainment.
We live on Calle Luz, a little street with trees.
Could I find that?
If you don't ask for Miss Del Val.
I'll inquire about
What?
the house of the prettiest girl in town.
There is where you will lose your way. Now, that is not quite sincere.
It is.
I thought you, at least, would not say such a thing.
Pretty, pretty, a foolish word. But there is none one more handy. I didn't mean that quiet,
Are you withdrawing the compliment?
reinforcing it maybe. Something is pretty when it pleases the eye. It is more than that when,
If it saddens,
exactly,
it must be ugly.
always.
Toward the west, the sunlight lay on the dimming waters in a broad, slanting streamer of crimson gold. No, of course, you are right.
Why did you say this is the last time?
I am going home.
When?
Tomorrow. I received a letter from father and mother yesterday. They want me to spend Holy Week at home.
That is why I said this is the last time.
Can I come to say goodbye?
Oh, you don't need to.
No, but I want to.
There is no time.
Home seems so far from here. This is almost like another life.
I know, this is elsewhere. And yet, strangely enough, I cannot get rid of the old things.
Old things?
Oh, old things, mistakes, encumbrances, old baggage.
Alfredo gripped the soft hand so near his own. At his touch, the girl turned her face away, but he heard her voice say very low, "Goodbye." Alfredo Salazar turned to the right where farther on the road broadened and entered the heart of town, heart of Chinese stores sheltered under long hung roofs of indolent drugstores and tailor shops. Soon, a double row of lights emerged from the church and uncoiled down the length of the street like a huge jeweled band studded with glittering clusters where the saints' platforms were. The sight of Esperanza and her mother sedately pacing behind Our Lady of Sorrows suddenly destroyed the illusion of continuity and broke up those lines of light into component individuals. Esperanza stiffened self-consciously, tried to look unaware, and could not. Suddenly, Alfredo's slow blood began to beat violently. A girl was coming down the line, a girl striking and vividly alive, the woman that could cause violent commotion in his heart yet had no place in the completed ordering of his life. At last, Our Lady of Sorrows entered the church, and with her the priest and choir, whose voices now echoed from the arch ceiling. The bells rang the close of the procession. Toward the end of the row of Chinese stores, he caught up with Julia Salas.
I had been thinking all this time that you had gone.
No, my sister asked me to stay until they are ready to go.
Oh, is the judge going?
Yes, Mr. Salazar, I wish to congratulate you
For what?
for your approaching wedding. I should have offered congratulations long before, but mere visitors are slow about getting the news.
Are weddings interesting to you?
When they are friends, yes.
Would you come if I ask you?
When is it going to be?
May,
May is the month of happiness, they say.
they say. Would you come?
Why not?
No reason. I am just asking. Then you will?
If you ask me,
I ask you.
then I will be there. The gravel road lay before them at the road's end, the lighted windows of the house on the hill.
Julia, did you ever have to choose between something you wanted to do and something you had to do?
No!
I thought maybe you have had that experience. Then you could understand a man who was in such a situation. You are fortunate.
Is is this man sure of what he should do?
I don't know, Julia. Perhaps not. But there is a point where a thing escapes us and rushes downward of its own weight, dragging us alone. Then it is foolish to ask whether one will or will not, because it no longer depends on him.
But then why oh, what do I know? What is his problem after all?
Doesn't it interest you?
Why must it? I have to say goodbye. Mr. Salazar, we are at the house. Had the final word been said? He wondered. It had. Yet a feeble flutter of hope trembled in his mind, though set against that hope were 3 years of engagement, a very near wedding, perfect understanding between the parents, his own conscience, and Esperanza herself. Esperanza waiting, Esperanza no longer young, Esperanza the efficient, the literal minded, the intensely acquisitive. She is not married to him. Besides, she should have thought of us. Nanay practically brought her up. We never thought she would turn out bad, Esperanza insisted.
You are very positive about her badness.
Who would not be? Do you mean to say you approve of what she has done?
Of what?
What she did?
No.
Well,
All I say is that it is not necessarily wicked.
why should it be? You talk like an immoral man. I did not know that your ideas were like that.
My ideas? The only test I wish to apply to conduct is the test of fairness. Am I injuring anybody? No? Then I am justified in my conscience. Am I right?
She has injured us. She was ungrateful.
The trouble with you, Esperanza, is that you are.
Why do you get angry? I do not understand you at all. I think I know why you have been indifferent to me so lately. I am not blind or deaf. I see perhaps some are trying to keep you away from me.
Why don't you speak out frankly before it is too late? You need not to think of me of what people will say.
Alfredo was suffering as he could not remember ever having suffered before. What people will say, what will they not say? What do they say when long engagements are broken almost on the eve of the wedding?
Yes, one tries to be fair according to his lights, but it is hard. One would like to be fair to oneself first, but that is not too easy. One does not dare.
What do you mean? Whatever my shortcomings, and no doubt there are many in your eyes, I have never gone out of my way, out of my place to find a man.
Esperanza, you, suppose, I,
If you mean you want to take back your word, if you are tired of, why don't you tell me you are tired of me? She burst out in a storm of weeping that left him completely shamed and unnerved. The last word had been said. As Alfredo Salazar leaned against the boat rail to watch the evening settling over the lake, he wondered if Esperanza would attribute any significance to this trip of his. He was supposed to be in Santa Cruz, whither the case of the people of the Philippine Islands versus Belina et al. Had called him, and there he would have been if Brigada Samui had not been so important to the defense. He had to find that elusive old woman. That the search was leading him to that particular lake town which was Julia Salas' home should not disturb him unduly. He was not unhappy in his marriage. He felt no rebellion, only the calm of capitulation to what he recognized as irresistible forces of circumstance and of character. His life had simply ordered itself. No more struggles, no more stirring up of emotions that got a man nowhere.
is the abogado there? Abogado? What abogado? Salazar.
That must be the Presidente, he thought, and he went down to the landing. It was a policeman, a tall pock-marked individual. The Presidente had left with Brigada Samui Tandang Binday that noon for Santa Cruz. Senor Salazar's second letter had arrived late, but the wife had read it and said, "Go and meet the abogado and invite him to our house." Alfredo Salazar courteously declined the invitation. He would sleep on board since the boat would leave at 4 the next morning anyway. So the Presidente had received his first letter. Alfredo did not know because that official had not sent an answer.
Yes,
The policeman replied,
but he could not write because we heard that Tandang Binday was in San Antonio, so we went there to look for her.
how peaceful the town was. Here and there a little tienda was still open, its dim light issuing forlornly through the single window which served as counter. The thought of Julia Salas in that quiet place filled him with sadness. How would life seem now if he had married Julia Salas? Had he meant anything to her? That unforgettable red and gold afternoon in early April haunted him with a sense of incompleteness as restless as other unlaid ghosts. She had not married. Why? Faithfulness, he reflected, was not a conscious effort as regretful memory. Somehow or other, he had known that he would find her house because she would surely be sitting at the window. Where else, before bedtime on a moonlight night? The house was low, and the light in the sala behind her threw her head into unmistakable relief. He sensed rather than saw her start of vivid surprise.
Good evening.
"Good evening. Oh, are you in town?
On some little business.
Won't you come up?" He considered. His vague plans had not included this, but Julia Salas had left the window, calling to her mother as she did so. After a while, someone came downstairs with a lighted candle to open the door. At last, he was greeting the old people. He was looking at her. He was shaking her hand. She had not changed much, a little less slender, not so eagerly alive, Yet something had gone. He missed it, sitting opposite her, looking thoughtfully into her fine dark eyes. She asked him about the hometown, about this and that, in a sober, somewhat meditative tone. He conversed with increasing ease, though with a growing wonder that he should be there at all. He could not take his eyes from her face. What had she lost? Or was the loss his? He felt an impersonal curiosity creeping into his gaze. The girl must have noticed, for her cheek darkened in a blush. The young moon had set, and from the uninviting cot he could see one half of a star-studded sky. So that was all over. Why? Why had he obstinately clung to the dream from the weariness of actuality? And now mere actuality had robbed him of the dream. So all these years, since when? He had been seeing the light of dead stars, long extinguished, yet seemingly still in their appointed places in heavens.